Hello, it's Brad Laurie, or BlockchainBrad, and today I'm speaking on behalf of BlockVera. It's all about truth, trust and transparency on the blockchain and beyond. And today we have a very interesting project called Ferrum Network, and we have two members of that team with us today to really showcase and explain what they're all about. We have Naime and Ian here to let us know what they do and what they're planning on doing for the future as well. Thank you, gentlemen, for being here.
Thank you so much for having us, Brad. We're really excited to be here.
Thank you, Brad.
You're very welcome. Now, for those who'd like to know, again, to really support the concept of transparency, this is certainly supported by the Ferrum Network team. They are sponsoring this video to make sure you are informed. We are doing this at BlockVera to make sure you have educational value. It's designed to be objective as possible so we can really hone in on what they do and what they're planning on doing. So let's get started, gentlemen. Firstly, high-speed interoperability. That's the network that you are building. Let's talk about what that actually means, Naime. You are leading this out. What does it mean to be high speed, and what does Ferrum represent?
Awesome. So, Brad, as you and your audience know, currently there are a few major players in the crypto market. We got Bitcoin, we got Ethereum, we got Binance Chain, and all these networks do not talk to each other. There have been efforts on bringing these networks together in terms of different techniques for cross-chain swaps, like atomic swap that we are familiar with. And various applications, projects have been trying to basically fill in the gap of connecting networks together. Ferrum Network is building on top of the basically the previous work. We are coming in with a new initiative, with a new method that allows some sort of proxy tokens that are their value is pegged to the actual tokens through algorithmic, like through cryptographic techniques. Mm-hmm. So what that does that mean is that we are now able to bring in other assets into the Ferrum network, right? So now regardless of where your source asset is, it could be Bitcoin, could be Ethereum, could be EOS, could be XRP or Binance. So we can bring those assets into Ferrum network. And this is not happening through a centralized entity. This is happening in a decentralized setup.
Right, okay, I just want to jump in there so we don't confuse the audience too much and break this down to bite-sized chunks. Now, the big point you're making there, Naime, is that it's all about that cross-chain interoperability. So I want to ask you, Ian, as someone who's leading out many other aspects of this network, and certainly you'd know right now there's a lot happening for you as you move towards the ICO. Interoperability is something that's thrown around quite loosely, but in the context of Ferrum, what does it mean? From the blockchain standpoint, are you a technology that supports other blockchains, or where do you fit in this discussion in terms of blockchain itself?
Sure. So Ferrum is technically a DAG network, which was chosen due to some of its speed and other features that we felt were more suited to our goals of building financial applications. But in terms of interoperability, I think it's a critical need in the space right now, and there's no one that's credibly solved the problem. Ferrum approached things in a little bit of a different way, in the sense of we wanted to build an MVP, improve this technology before we went out to the market and raised funds. And so that's what we've done. In fact, when I met Naime back in early 2018, the Ferrum network could already import Bitcoin into the network, create a proxy that was then exchangeable over this DAG network, which is really what's happening on the back end. Since then, we've built a product called Kudi Exchange in Africa. Now, of course, we're running up to the ICO, so there's a lot that's happened. But fundamentally, it's a DAG-based interoperability network, and we feel that it brings a lot of value, not just to us, but to the space as a whole.
Right. Now, Naime, you obviously, as the lead technologist for the project, we need to explore why the DAG. Maybe we could start a little bit about what the DAG is, as that directed acyclic graph. It's so fundamental to many synchronous and asynchronous systems. Can we talk about firstly what the DAG is, in a nutshell, and then why you decided to really focus on that as the basis for your entire technological platform?
Awesome. So DAG in contrast to blockchain. So there are two different solutions to the same problem. So the blockchain, basically, as you know, there are blocks of transactions, and different blocks gets built in parallel, and eventually we are pruning the whole tree of blocks that is getting built as we go forward to a single line, to a single chain of the basically consensus, and that single chain represents the reality. The difference between DAG and blockchain in that sense is, in DAG we are not trying to prune that tree anymore. Mm-hmm. So basically this tree gets built, but there's no pruning. We just try to keep the tree narrow.
Right.
And
okay.
That way, yeah.
So you're optimizing through the DAG, and obviously for time constraints. If you'd like to know more about the DAG, there's a white paper. There's significant information you can read up on DAGs, particularly particularly with regard to what Ferrum offer with regard to the literature. But I wanted to move more into the reasons why now. Why choose the DAG over blockchain, other systems for other consensus mechanisms? What really is the asset it brings for scalability, efficiency, productivity?
Perfect. So there are a few things that I love about DAGs. So there's a lot, this is not to bash blockchain. Blockchain is a great technology as well. But there are a few characteristics of DAG which I personally like a lot, and I think is very useful. One is there is no mining, no block mining. Therefore, there is no time to wait between this block and next block. Every transaction for itself can be considered a block, right? So every transaction could potentially be mined. And another thing is like we are basing our DAG design based on IOTA Tangle, mm-hmm. And IOTA Tangle is very simple in its basis, and the simplicity is actually a virtue. So it allows us to build on top of it. So the fact that it's very simple, there's no mining, it allows us to have some very innovative solutions that is especially useful for a cross-chain system.
Right. Now, you'd be familiar with some of the questions that were raised about IOTA, particularly in light of significant claims about centralization, control. We've seen that play out with EOS even. So what's your response to a lot of those who really pushed the envelope, really suggested that there needed to be more exploration of the tech itself in IOTA?
Yeah, perfect. So the concern about IOTA centralization is an entity they have in their design called a coordinator. So coordinator have been so far a centralized entity, they're moving away from it, but it still is a centralized entity. So in Ferrum Network, we have changed that, we have solved that problem. We've modified the coordinator concept a little bit. We are calling it flag bearer. And flag bearer is not centralized anymore in the sense that anybody can become a flag bearer. There's in contrast to IOTA coordinator, which a single entity is the coordinator. Mm-hmm. In Ferrum, that anybody can become a flag bearer, and then we added a proof of a stake mechanism on top of it, such that basically flag bearers will not they won't be able to do double spending. To confirm that they will not be able to do double spending anyway, because every node validates.
Right.
They won't be able to do anything wrong. They will lose their stake.
That's a big deal, because that double spending problem was a big issue raised, by the community, the whole crypto community, for the IOTA Tangle network itself. Now, this addition of staking as well adds security, adds incentivization. It also means that individuals can participate in a way that Tangle and an IOTA system would not allow. So what's the potential with regard to validators? What's your plan with regard to introducing staking to the ecosystem?
So staking, we have two types of staking. One is more in terms of the ICO plan, which will come later. But there is the type of staking that is built into the network and is basically So there's one key thing about Ferrum Network. So every time you submit a transaction, you are burning one from Ferrum Network. So the transaction fee is essentially burned. It's because there's no miner.
Mm-hmm.
It is not collected through the mining, or there's no inflation. All the transactions, all the number of Ferrum Network is going down all the time by every single transaction. So the staking mechanism allows people that contribute those flag bearer transactions, which are some sort of synchronization mechanism, to just issue a new transaction which is empty. Only the transaction says this part of graph I've checked and is valid.
Mm-hmm.
And those people will be able to collect a small percentage of the fees that are validating. So it is some sort of the staking rewards are in terms of mining. It's kind of a sort of mining situation, but it's not exactly the same thing because it's a DAG.
Right.
But
so it's clear that you've been inspired by mining mechanisms, but not built that in. Now, Ian, I want to ask you, you did a lot of research when it came to metric design, tokenomic design. You did a lot of research on other companies, projects, startups. Having this addition of the burning aspect is significant for scarcity modeling, token modeling itself. Do you want to talk to us about your reasoning? You know, why the team decided to really add this additional burning aspect to their whole structure?
Sure. So it actually was not a decision made with respect to the token metrics. It's actually a fundamental aspect of the technology itself. Mm-hmm. So even before we were talking ICO and token metrics, this token burn per transaction was always a fundamental aspect of the technology. It just so happens that it does benefit the metrics in some people's eyes, I suppose. Right. The metrics were, I have to give credit where credit's due, were designed by experts, and we designed it in such a way that I think really captures what's important in this market. But the burning, frankly, is just sort of an ancillary benefit to everything. Mm-hmm. And so just wanted to be clear about that.
Got it. And I appreciate that. But obviously, it is important for us to know, as you start to move towards the ICO, the holistic benefits of this technological burn asset that we're talking about. Now, with regard to key features, Naime, I wanted to ask you a bit more about the real utility that this system brings, because obviously it's one thing to have a really strong DAG infrastructure, and we can certainly read up into all the technical details in the future, but it's another thing to have things that function on that ecosystem, that are viable, that are real, and that we can actually use. So what's the plan with Ferrum to date with regard to services and products?
Awesome. So you put it very nicely. It's very important for a network to have utility, and Ferrum Network is very unique in that sense. It's as even before we have anything in public in terms of a network and testing the mainnet, we already have applications that are running on top of Ferrum Network in a private setting. Mm-hmm. So Kudi Exchange is a very good example. It's one of the basically. We call it Venmo plus Coinbase of Africa. Mm-hmm. For people that are not from US, they probably don't know Venmo, but Venmo is a payment app. And Coinbase, everybody's familiar with. So it's a setup for businesses, for individuals to get into crypto and also use their local currencies such as Naira, which is a Nigerian currency. Mm-hmm. We have US feature, we have payroll and business features. So it's a very advanced app for which is designed for the African market. We have a team on the ground in Africa already. We have 4 people hired just recently. They're going shop to shop in the best locations of Lagos. Mm-hmm. to get businesses on board. So we are building all these hard work, all these ground, dirty, boring work, which is not really shiny and exciting, but it's necessary for a business. Mm-hmm. to succeed in the system.
So Kudi Exchange, Ian, you've also been heavily involved in trying to assert the strength of this partnership with Kudi, the Kudi Exchange, and I want to really explore this in terms of utility, because it was quite interesting that it was in Nigeria. I want to find out more about, firstly, how that evolved. why this Nigerian connection to start with, especially since, very early on, Ferrum had these networks and these connections and are still yet to, move into the ICO, for example. Like, a lot was happening pre-ICO, pre-development in this area of utility, which is quite unusual. So can you talk us through more about the relationship with the Kudi exchange, what it actually means and what the plan is for Ferrum to expand upon this privilege of this connection in Africa?
Absolutely. So yeah, you said it perfectly. It really was a privilege to have the connections that we ultimately built that resulted in Kudi. So Kudi is really the brainchild of our early seed investors who were very well connected in Nigeria. They come from well-to-do Nigerian families and had the ability to get the bank licenses or the banking connection and the licenses to operate a fiat to crypto exchange in Nigeria. It's not an easy thing to achieve. So when we learned of these connections and they learned of our technology and our ability to build basically a fiat gateway and a payments app, we immediately got to work on that because the idea was build a useful product, solve people's problems, acquire users for that product, then migrate it onto the network, and you immediately have utility.
Right. And you also have network effects from a pre-existing entity.
Exactly. So again, very fortunate, but like Naeem said, it's been a lot of hard work. We launched the product at the end of May. It's been growing every day.
Mm-hmm.
Engagement's high, and we're really about to ramp up the marketing. So I hope when we do a follow-up in a few months from now, we'll be able to report many thousands and thousands of users and daily transactions, which I think is where we're going.
Got it. So this is the thing I want to really focus on. Fiat to crypto. Firstly, that's not easy to do. That's what Kudi does in Nigeria, in Africa. So that's been set up. You've engaged with them since May. It's been operational. Can you talk us through what's happened since then? Once that launch happened, how has the interaction been? How has the uptake been? How has the adoption been?
So, go.
Okay. So I go. We have recently launched at Kudi, and we have been growing steadily since then. The very interesting factor is that we have a very good engagement rate for a mobile or payment app. So, and our engagement rate is about 20%, and it doesn't drop. So after 2 weeks, we still have a good portion of the users from 2 weeks ago engaged in the platform. It's a very, very good sign. As obviously, there's a lot of work ahead of us. Right now, actually tomorrow, we have a meetup in one of the universities. I forgot the name in Nigeria, mm-hmm. which will be 1,500 students coming in. There will be some rewards for using the app and inviting their friends. We have also social viral platform built into the app so that you can give gifts to the friends and you both get rewarded. So we have had a steady growth, but it's still early days. There's a lot of work ahead.
Right. Now, Ian, do you want to add to that? Now, let's paint a picture of Nigeria for a moment. Perhaps that needs to be said so we can better understand the utility of this token in that context. But what's the kinds of things that people are using the Ferrum token for?
Sure. So Nigeria is a really interesting, I think, use case for crypto in general. In my travels there, you realize quickly that it's largely still a cash-based society. There is a lot of issues with trust, such that credit cards aren't quite used. The technology is improving, but it's not what we have in the West. So for that reason, Bitcoin and other major cap cryptocurrencies are used day to day as a medium of exchange, which is, for those in the West would be unusual. Mm. So we're stepping into what I think is a really potentially huge market. There's not a lot of incumbent players, and there's certainly no player that has a product with the three main features of ours, which is buying and selling cryptocurrencies, access to US dollar stablecoin through our partnership with Gemini, and then the ability to send actual fiat currency instantly for zero fees. That's what
Okay.
the Kudi does. And
There's some big points. I'm sorry to interrupt, but you said two very important developments: a partnership with Gemini and very low to zero fees. That's something that not even Bitcoin can attest to yet. I mean, it's still relatively expensive for the developing world to interact with Bitcoin to buy bread, for example. Now, you're saying that you're conditioned more for the scenario where it can be globally traded commodity / utility / currency. And for that to happen, you need to have low fees, and you need strong partnerships. What does it mean for those 2 points of the fee and the partnership with Gemini?
Sure. So to be clear, the zero fee transactions are having to do with the actual fiat money within the Kudi exchange app. So the Naira, you can send, like I could send you Naira right now, Brad, sitting here in New York, and you're in Australia. I could send you Naira. You get an alert on your phone in milliseconds, and you have the Naira in your Kudi app. So
Right.
I mean, that's pretty, I think, innovative in itself. But the Ferrum Network technology is designed for extremely fast, cheap transactions. So when the mainnet is launched, you'll be able to actually send Bitcoin around itself, Bitcoin itself, much faster. You can send it using the Bitcoin network. That's the real value proposition of the Ferrum network itself.
Right. Okay. Now, so that, again, that cross-chain interoperability, the transfer of digital assets, all enfranchised, enabled, and better potentiated through your whole network. Now, what does it mean, though, in the context of stablecoins? What does it mean in the context of competitors in the space trying to emerge as global commodities or global utilities in this marketplace of trying to be there for payments, there for remittance? What does it mean for Ferrum in that context?
Yeah, so I don't necessarily view Ferrum as a competitor to stablecoin projects. We're actually more of a facilitator of those assets. The one of the visions of Ferrum is to democratize finance and bring different financial applications to people who need them. And to us, one of the most important innovations of cryptocurrency is the stablecoin, especially for those in developing countries whose own currency is very unstable. So with the Ferrum Network products, Kudi Exchange, UniFyre Wallet, and others, we can actually facilitate the use of stable coins through our apps. And that's something we're looking forward to continuing to do in Nigeria and throughout Africa as we expand.
Well, the partnership with Gemini would affirm that, because they're proponents of stable coins themselves. So the discussions you had, the finalization of the partnership, what does it mean now in reality to have Gemini on the books for Ferrum?
Yeah, so I think the most important thing is really to our customers. They're the ones who benefit the most, because up until we launched Kudi and partnered with Gemini to bring Gemini Dollar in the app, they did not really have meaningful access to a US dollar-backed stablecoin. And the feedback from the customers has been really, really positive. Not only as a hedge against the volatility of Bitcoin, but also against the volatility of their own native fiat currency. So
Right.
I think it's mean a lot to people.
Right. Now, in the future, are you also looking at other exchanges? Because obviously Kudi is not that well known globally. You're putting it on the map now and making a mark. But there are other exchanges that are using not only the US dollar, for example, as a means of pegging, but there are the euro coming forth. We see exchanges like DAG-based, for example, in Europe now looking forward and moving forward very seriously in that area of euro-backed systems. We see in Asia baskets of currencies being pegged for stablecoin initiatives like Terra. We see Libra as a very interesting topic right now with basket pegging, but also one that's really thwarting narratives from the top down, really scaring, I think, a lot of governments around the world with their G7 reaction. So in that sense, are you exploring the opportunity to engage with more exchanges that are fiat backed or in some way?
So that is one of the features of the UniFyre Wallet. So for the UniFyre Wallet, we are looking at the global version of the Kudi app, but it's completely non-custodial, so that there's no licenses to get. But we are working very hard to integrate UniFyre Wallet with as many exchanges around the world as possible. We're in talk with a few of them. And as we grow and Ferrum name gets known more and more, we get to leverage that and onboard more exchanges to the system. My goal is maybe a year or two from now, anywhere in the world that you go, you travel, you open your UniFyre app, you see the local, the most relevant local stable coin in your wallet in top of the assets that you can do, and you click on it, and you'll be able to find a local or local exchange or global exchange that allows you to immediately withdraw, so like deposit some money into that local stable coin and use it as a money that you can move it around the world.
Right.
In local countries.
So essentially you want to be that intermediary technology that really taps into the real asset, and that is access, to transfers of units of value. And you want to make sure that you can really have a significant number of exchanges globally in your roadmap. So again, I'm going to sort of touch on this, if that's okay, Naime, because you said that, you're talking to a few exchanges now. It's just part of this roadmap of continual development of more exchanges and that engagement. So who are you talking to? What can you tell us? And what, obviously there are NDAs right now, but I'll still push as much as I can.
So yeah, so absolutely. So obviously we cannot, talk about it for obvious reasons. And also if it didn't happen with a certain exchange, we don't want to look like fool.
Sure.
But the reality is, it's one of the high priorities for us. So in terms of UniFyre Wallet, we have 3 priorities: security, convenience, and accessibility. Accessibility means you need to be able to bring fiat to your wallet as easy as possible. So hopefully, so the UniFyre is going to come out very soon, and you will see at least one exchange which works in Europe and US on that system. We can't talk about it now, but it would be it wouldn't be too far. So. And
is it an exchange we would recognize? We would know?
I guess so, yeah.
I guess so. Okay, I appreciate that. Now, obviously, there's a lot happening right now. Let's talk about the ICO. Now, Ian, you've done a lot with regard to really building this out. Lost a lot of sleep, I imagine, in the last few weeks. What does it mean to use that acronym ICO again for Ferrum?
Well, it's really exciting, Brad. We thought long and hard about this. Obviously, you look around the market and the buzzword is IEO, and it's been like that for months. So I guess in one respect, it was somewhat risky to do an ICO. No one else is really doing them now. But if you look at IEOs and you understand the problems associated with them, the fact that mostly bots get involved, your community is locked out for the most part, the costs are extraordinarily high, it attracts the wrong kind of investors. If you're willing to take the risk to do something quote unquote different, it has the opportunity to be tremendous. The innovation we did was to say, okay, the reason why people like IEOs is because you have an exchange listing shortly after. So why not just lock down that exchange listing and then do an and people also like the fact that ICOs are very low. IEOs are mostly very low capped. So
yes,
why not
true.
Low cap ICO, get your community involved, and then have an exchange listing within a few days thereafter. So if you can achieve that, you can get the best of all worlds.
Well, let's pull this back and let's really unpack this, because you are low cap. There's no way around that. And there's absolutely no question that recently, especially, a lot of the exchanges have been attracted to sound tech low cap. Now, I say sound tech with a big question mark. Not everything is good tech that is listed as an IEO. Some of it is just shit tech. But, there's some legitimacy to some of these projects. We know, I mean, as I talked about before, there is certainly a reason why we can argue or I can anyway, to suggest that there are legit coins out there, as much as we see on record discussions of shit coins, as we've seen the Libra discussions recently. So in that context, let's move back to the ICO. Now, you're low cap, you're doing things differently to the IEO. You've already advertised listings, starting exchanges are starting. What's the reasoning though behind doing it this way? Really explain to us, why you approached it this way.
Well, for us, it was really all about community focus. And the issue with IEOs is that the community, it's very hard for the community to get involved. ICO, you can have a proper whitelist. You can ensure that your greatest supporters get involved. And that's extremely, extremely important to us. The challenge arises when you do a low cap project and you may run into unexpected costs, or you realize that the exchange listing was maybe more expensive than you thought, things like that. So we've done something that's I think quite innovative in terms of the low cap, and then combining with what we're calling a traction-based reserve model. Mm-hmm. So we're raising 1.12 million in all rounds and 300,000 in the ICO round. We've then reserved a percentage of tokens in this traction model, which is locked for 1 year and then slowly unlocks as the network gains tractions and as we start burning tokens. Because remember, mm-hmm. every transaction in Ferrum requires a small amount of token be spent and burned. Right. So in doing so, we're able to achieve a very low cap, but still have some capital reserves for down the line, assuming we do what we promise we're going to do.
Right, and that's really important, obviously, for your runway, for you to survive as a team and to even grow. And that's always the concern when we see such low caps, how you sustain your own ecosystem, how you build this through. Now, can you talk us through the roadmap of exchange, for example? How you approach this ICO listing. What's exactly planned that you can tell us where with the how you start and embark on your journey as you build your utility, and obviously have to engage in other exchanges in the future?
Sure. So obviously we're under very strict NDA. We can't talk about the exchange per se, but for Ferrum, quality is critical. Mm-hmm. We were never going to settle for something that wasn't going to do justice to what we're building, the community that's been so devoted for us for over a year now. So having a really quality exchange to partner with for that first listing was absolutely paramount for us. Right. But we can't settle there. So we're really in this for the long haul. And so you can't really just rest on your laurels and say only one exchange is sufficient. You need to keep going. So right. We have a whole plan. I can't get into it now, but we have a whole plan to continue to move up the exchange ladder. I think everyone will be quite pleased with.
Right, and I really appreciate your honesty and transparency here, especially impressed by the way you're approaching this. And the reason why is because you could have made a lot of money as an IEO. Are you aware of that? And that you could have essentially done what many do, and that is you really use the shield factor, really use the benefits of I guess the profiteering associated with a lot of the IEOs you see.
Yeah, no, I realize that because I get messages every day asking for more people who want to invest, and I have to turn them away. So right. Yeah, of course we could have raised more, but But
even as an IEO, did you ever consider that?
An IEO, a hype machine, but that wouldn't have left us much better off where we were even pre-raised, because you just become a flash in the pan, and we're right. trying to be for a long time. We have many products we're trying to build. We're really trying to be a major player in the space, and to do that, you need to think long term. You need to do things in a sustainable way. And for us, from the sales standpoint, that meant being community focused, being very reasonable in our raise, and then still having this sort of insurance policy with the traction-based reserve that we've developed. So I think it all sort of hopefully is coming together and for people.
Right. Yes, and that TBR that you've built in is really a secret sauce that you have. And you've alluded to the fact that often the case is that the IEOs really supports the exchange. It really supports the pockets of others, not always that project that's trying to emerge. So this is another insurance policy you've built in, another strategy so that you can be that longitudinal project. And I really do respect that. Again, legit coins exist. I'm not suggesting anything more than that with that comment, but I do truly believe it, having spoken to so many different CEOs. Now, with regard to mobility, I want to talk about that for a moment. Let's paint a picture of the developing regions of the world. Everyone has a phone, perhaps more in those regions than in the Western world or the developed world. What does it mean for Ferrum in terms of mobility, accessibility, interaction, development of the ecosystem?
Yeah, that's a very good point. So one data point I was looking at was about 80%. I'm not sure how legit this number is, but it's a smartphone usage in Lagos, which is one of the cities in Africa we're very active on, is about 80% of the people have some sort of a smartphone, which is really high. Like, it's kind of on par with US or maybe even better. And there is also another thing that makes Ferrum fit for that purpose. So that three things coming together: a smartphone profilation, and appetite for cryptocurrencies is quite high because it's a really efficient means of exchange, and the banking system is not already in place that much. And third is that low cost. Like, the major cryptocurrencies we have right now are low cost. And as you were saying, like shitcoins, there are low cost, coins that are not really major. But if you look at the stable coins or the Bitcoin or basically most of the major currencies, there's still, even Ethereum is not that cheap. So every transaction has cost some money. So putting these three factors together, there are three things that Ferrum specializes in: local transaction of other currencies, not only Ferrum tokens. So you can do Bitcoin, Ethereum transactions very cheaply, being available in smartphones. That's why we are so much focused on mobile apps. So we don't even have a web. We don't start with a web application. We start with a mobile app application.
Right.
And all our apps works all the way back to Android 5. It we tested on the most low end. I actually have an example phone here.
Yeah, well, we could put that up later, actually. If you want to send me some stuff, I'll make sure there's a graphic of those things.
Yeah. So I can send you those stuff. So basically, we are working with the cheapest, oldest technology available. We are very focused on that low end of the market, which is really have a use case for crypto, and we are making it available for making it.
It's really interesting because low end but high use case. Clearly, you understand not just the mechanics, but the real imperative, and that is, how do we get this into the real world? How do we get true, authentic adoption? You're starting with that. You've already started with that. And I think that's why I really wanted to talk to you, because very few projects have proof of adoption now. And that's the interesting thing, really, that you do have that. So in that context, what are the kind of numbers? What can you tell us about the assessments of adoption and moving beyond with this technology? So that we can really know that for the future there is a continuation of this adoption factor.
Absolutely. So just to give a small number, Lagos alone has got about 7 million people in the central part. Nigeria is 200 million people. They all need one of these technologies. There's no existing incumbent. So Ferrum and Kudi Exchange are in a very good position to be that leader. We have already, we are very close to opening a similar branching through Kudi in Kenya. If you open the Kudi app, you actually can already see Bitcoin versus Kenyan currency and the Ghanaian currency. So we are focused on West Africa. We are going to the rest of the Africa. There is Southeast Asia we're talking with. So numbers are insanely massive. If that's why we're not trying to focus in the crypto community and try to get the existing crypto user. We really want to get people that are not into crypto by providing them use cases that they don't even need to know it's running. So Kudi Exchange, if you play with it, there's no sign up tokens and stuff. If you do your business, you send money to your friend, you send money from US to Nigeria or just remittance, and there is very little friction. It also shows itself. So I'm very excited about UniFyre Wallet because we are applying the same concepts of frictionless and targeting non-crypto users to the UniFyre Wallet. So UniFyre Wallet is a non-custodial wallet, but again, you don't need to worry about the private key. Your backup is very different. It's still completely secure, completely on device, but you don't necessarily have to write.
Right.
Paper.
So simple, seamless, interface easy to use, all geared for the key technology or the key hardware. That's the phone. That's essential. Now, Ian, I want to talk about fees. We haven't clarified for Ferrum Network's fees. If we're talking about supporting many of the impoverished regions of the world, we have to make sure that you are very competitive as a network, as a startup. So are you? Can you compete with other like systems so that people who want to buy bread, for example, are going to be able to? So
sure. So it can't be lower than free, actually. So Kudi exchange transactions are free. Naira transactions are free. And they can be done through the phone number. So all you need is just some data, like a few bytes of data. Even we're careful about the downloads, like amount of megabytes that we use from the phone, because they have to pay for it. So yeah, you can be free. And when it comes on the Ferrum network, again, for the person-to-person transactions, Kudi exchange pays the Ferrum network fees on behalf of the customer of those Ferrum transactions. They're very low, so they can afford. There are fees on the gateway, like when you withdraw money to a normal bank account, that's where you hit the fee, or when you do a trade, that's where you hit the fee. And those fees help to keep the normal transactions free.
Right. So in terms of the fee structure or the means of sustainability for Ferrum, Ian, I want to find out, how do you sustain your model? How do you receive revenue with your technological service and offerings? Because obviously it's not just Kudi for the future. There's a whole suite of exchanges waiting to use you. So how do you continue to develop revenue? So
we have a small, the reserve model that Ian alluded to. We have some portion of Ferrum tokens as a reserve model that will be unlocked after a year or so, based on the traction. So that could produce some sort of revenue for us. Obviously, we are, as the Ferrum network itself is not a revenue generating product, but we have several products such as UniFyre Wallet, such as Kudi Exchange, and these products can have side opportunities to produce revenue for the platform to grow. Right now, we're focused on the growth. Once we grow, and once we are a household name, a lot of people know about us, then we have a lot of opportunity to monetize some of this application outside the network for the business to grow.
I see. So you're betting on products of the future to really sustain your model. That makes a lot of sense. Now, for you to do that, you have to have a strong team. You have to be growing. How is the team? And I really wanted to ask you very directly, especially you, Naime, do you have proven credentials? Not just you, but just more generally as a term for the team, a question posed, to prove that you have already built quality technology? Because that already has to be in the pipeline now, moving since you're so operational and so engaged with mainstream. Have you got the goods, the technological goods, to really build this with your team?
Yeah, awesome. So yeah, sure. So we have a mixed team. We have hired a bunch of developers we have China and Ukraine, and also we have US developers helping us full-time and part-time, which really a great background. I myself, I'm also been doing, I've architected most of the work, and I've been doing this for a while. I actually did my PhD in University of Queensland from the city that, I think you're from Brisbane, right?
Yeah, I'm close to that area. So I certainly know that university. I went to the same one. One of many, but that was one.
Okay. So I did my PhD in distributed database systems in University of Queensland. And distributed database system which is a great university, is the basis of blockchain technology in some sense.
Right.
Plus, and then I moved to US. I worked for Microsoft, Amazon for years, Bloomberg, leading machine learning, working machine learning teams, and AI and distributed, like very high scale distributed applications. So we have had built Kudi with very small amount of money in the bear market, and it's been scaling very well with minimum, almost no issues so far, touch the wood. And
right. Well, that's good to know, because I had a discussion some months ago with Sandeep from Matic, and he said very similar things, actually. They were extremely frugal. They did so much work to survive the bear market. You've clearly done the same in your approach by just knuckling down and building this technology, doing everything you can to build utility. Now you're coming to the ICO. Ian, I really want to talk about lockup. So we want to know, for transparency, what does it mean, for those who invested? I want to make sure there's no risks of dumps in this ecosystem at all for the future, evolution or development of the token and for the ecosystem, so that we can make sure that it truly is about utility.
Absolutely. So fairness and transparency are pillars of how we do business. And so we wanted to ensure that the lockups did just that. So effectively, everybody has the same unlock schedule. All the investors are fully unlocked after 3 months. They get 40% on the first at the TGE, 40% at the 30th day, and then 20% at the 60th day from the private sales standpoint. So we wanted everyone to be fully unlocked, so there really isn't. We're not playing games with, you're locked up for 2 years. That's how we achieve the low cap and the low circulating supply. No, we achieve the low cap and low circulating supply because we have a low cap and a low circulating supply.
It makes you exceptional and very transparent, because most projects, especially those that are really trying to build out something for the long term, they also reflect that in their long term trajectory for the lockups. They really do make this a long hold for many people, and many would know that even if they initially didn't, they changed them to be so. Now you're saying something very different. You're saying, you know what, we're just going to reduce these typically long, year-long or years-long lockups to something that's more palatable for investors. So it's a bit of a risk in one sense, because this is a short term, talking about 3 months. Are you confident that you've made the right decision there to allow for investors to essentially unlock, a typically quick fashion?
Yeah, I think so, because our goal is to show that we're doing everything right from a fundamental standpoint with products, users, and utility, such that people see that this is not a quick flip, but a long-term play. And so we can unlock the tokens. Let's be fair to the investors and prove to them that they should hold on to it. That's our ultimate goal.
Right.
And we're not going to convince everybody. Some people may sell, and that's fine.
Yeah.
But our goal is to demonstrate utility and show that we're in for the long haul. And I think the majority of our investors are really with us on that.
It's a really interesting blockchain bet, or a crypto bet, because for the first time, we really see proof of adoption happening pre-listing. So, for the reasons that we're talking about with the Kudi exchange already, out, that already sets forth a narrative for what we call hodling. Because if you're starting to prove utility, you're starting to move into a marketplace where you're being used in a real sense by not millions of people, that must be playing in the minds of investors, surely.
Well, that's our hope, but we're not satisfied to just rest on Kudi exchange. Although we do think the growth there is potentially massive. Like Naime said, we'll be releasing a worldwide product next that will also be running on top of Ferrum Network. There will be a massive marketing campaign surrounding that, and we're expecting many thousands, tens of thousands of users. So, and of course, this will then transactions on UniFyre Wallet also require Ferrum Network tokens and to be spent and burned. So, if you look at our roadmap, you understand the connection between the products, the network, and the token. I truly believe that people will start to see Ferrum as a long-term play, even if we unlock all the tokens after 3 months.
Right. Now, one of the things we haven't talked about before wrapping up the interview is social mining. That's another feature you built in, quite progressive. Do you want to talk to us about what it actually means to have that asset built into the system?
Absolutely. And I just want to make one correction to my last statement. For the record, not all the tokens are unlocked, just the investor tokens. The team tokens are locked for 2 years. All the rest, the company tokens have very conservative locks. So I don't want to scare.
That's a really important point to make now, and that's a big thing because we haven't seen that with every project. So I'm glad you did mention that sometimes the team tokens correlated with the investor tokens, which was very
yeah.
Right. So a 2-year lock, to be really clear, for team members.
Correct. So the team members are locked for two years, and then it slowly unlocks over time after that. And for each category of tokens, there's a different unlocking schedule. The marketing tokens are different from the partnership tokens and so forth. But we think they're all very conservative. They're all justifiable. They're all explained in the white paper in great detail. Okay,
so that's all information that's public right now. So if you'd like to know more, make sure you do go and spend some time exploring that, because all of that information does matter in terms of trust, transparency, truth, things that BlockVera stand for also. Now, social mining, really interesting addition to your model. What does it mean and why did you do it?
Yeah, so we're really excited to have announced our social mining partnership with the guys at DAO Maker. So social mining is an innovative, community-driven ecosystem growth tool. I know I suppose it's a bit of a mouthful, but what essentially does is allows other community members to gauge the value of content that's being created by the community, and then reward people who create value-driving content and disincentivize people from creating poor content. But we're not the final arbiters of it. We're not a dictatorship. It's really a democratic system where everyone in the community can say, okay, this content was great. Let's upvote it. Let's reward these guys with points. And drive value in that way. And then the points ultimately correspond to Ferrum Network token payouts that will happen periodically to everyone who's adding value to the system. So it's sort of this our goal is to have a virtuous cycle of value addition, token appreciation, more people coming on, and we're really excited to see where it can go.
Right. Now, there's a lot happening, and many of the partners that you have already onboarded would agree. I'm just going to list a few of them. So you have, as we mentioned, Gemini, you have Token Research Group, who are well known for the different platform contributions they make to the space. Rivets, Hydro, Fusion, Vector, that they are all available. You can learn more about them. But what I really wanted to find out before we finish, gentlemen, is what's the partnership partner pipeline for Ferrum? What aren't you telling us about some of the perhaps blockchain alliances you're forging, or mainstream businesses that you're not telling us yet? What is to come?
Yeah, so we're really fortunate in that as an interoperability network, there's an opportunity to partner with a host of really high quality projects who want their tokens, frankly, to be listed in the UniFyre Wallet or the DEX that's coming out in 2020. So there's many opportunities. There's many partnerships in the pipeline with really high value other projects.
Right.
In terms of the more mainstream, we talked about the fiat gateways before. Some of the big names in the space in that sense. And then in Nigeria, we're also looking to talk to telecoms and the other major players there in sort of traditional business, because we do have a payments application that can be quite valuable to traditional businesses as well.
Right. Well, it sounds like you're not telling us the names, and obviously Africa's really a continent to start with, and it's certainly not the last you're going to be dealing with. I imagine you're going to, as Naime has said, Asia, Southeast Asia particularly, is a big focus for you. I would imagine then moving beyond to other developing regions as real key foci for the potential of your technology. Gentlemen, thank you very much on behalf of BlockVera, and for those in the crypto community who just wanted to know more about what you're doing, thank you for providing a very transparent and robust discussion. I sincerely mean that. Basically, essentially, you're about a core technology developed by the DAG, really benefited by blockchain through this system you've built in as the platform that sits underneath. But the real asset is what you're doing with it. You know, how you enfranchise more global trade, how you're interacting with exchanges. Kudi is that first one, really showcasing as proof that you can be incorporated, adopted, and used by people around the world. This is what I would argue is just the start for Ferrum, and I wish you all the very best as you continue forth. It's important for, again, transparency. On behalf of BlockVera, I want to thank you for sponsoring this video. I hope I have been objective, but certainly I would love to catch up again. Certainly it can be on a free basis as well, because I really want to know how you're going. I really want to support projects that are legit, not shit, as some people erroneously call them, as you build out for the future and be that true utility for a new way of doing business and technology, using technology for it.
Thank you so much, Brad. We're really excited to be here, and yeah, I hope we're on the legit, not shit side of the.
I hope so too. I hope so too. And why not use that term? We hear the other one used. Why not coin legit, coin for real? Gentlemen, thank you very much for your time. Naime, thank you for being the technological presence and building this out. You've explained that you're leading a team to build more of this. I'd love to see that continue and you're seeing your team grow. Ian, thank you also for being that social, leader, really letting the community develop, making sure they're informed because they matter as well. Gentlemen, thank you again, both of you, for just your insights and let us know more about what Ferrum Network are doing.
Thanks a lot.
Thanks so much, Brad.
You're welcome.